You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Joe Hopkins and Mike Chappell, I'm Dave Griffiths. Mike and I just coming here from the Colts' second joint practice against the Lions. Been 2 days of good work, clean work, and Mike, no significant fights out there.
Probably one skirmish.
Yes, that was yesterday, right?
Correct.
The Wednesday. It was Michael Pittman who got hit kind of late. Of course it was. Got hit a little bit late. But then Quentin Nelson was quick to be there.
He's the guy in the bar that he's always your buddy.
Yep.
You want to fight me? Well, there's my buddy. Go talk to him.
Yeah, I think Pittman still probably would have thrown a few if he chose to. Maybe even Quentin being there brought his level down a little bit. Like you need to calm down.
But you see the videos of what was it, Carolina and the Patriots? Holy smokes!
Yeah,
they had to go apologize and give a ticket to a woman who got pummeled.
Well, they have bad blood because last year, remember, Mac Jones twisted Brian Burns' ankle in that one interception return. So I was not surprised when you see those two teams. Anyway,
but
I forgot about that.
That's cool video, but it serves no purpose.
None, not at all.
So you can say, well, these guys didn't fight. Well, they got good work done.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll get into it. But we'll just talk about it now. Is that they're going to play no starters on Saturday because they got good work today, ones on ones. What Frank say? 20 snaps in team drills today and yesterday, and then 7-on-7. And more important, you get in this, it's controlled, and you do situational stuff. Maybe in a game you don't get a 2-minute drive, and you don't get 3rd and 11, although you normally do. But in practice, you've got situational stuff, and these 2 days so much more valuable than what if they hadn't done this and they played a quarter or whatever on Saturday. So this was really important to both teams.
That's the biggest thing because, Joe, as we know, you can have a good football team that is poor situationally, and that loses football games. It can keep you out of playoffs. Like you could argue that, I mean, the Colts last year were kind of part of that with the fourth quarter defense just did not live up to expectations. The Baltimore game is the first one that comes to mind.
Well, even earlier in the year when they were having the struggles in the red zone and they couldn't punch the football in. And, from what I've heard, a few reports from practice is they're struggling again in the red zone.
Yesterday, it was pretty good.
It was running
so
the
much.
ball like today was the problem. They were inside the 5. And it was full contact, Frank told us afterward. They had 2 plays that were down like the 2 or the 1 yard line. They couldn't get in the end zone. You're right. That's the exact problem that they had at the beginning of last season.
So just working on these specific situations so that you don't necessarily have a glaring weakness is highly important at this time of year.
And to be fair, Jonathan Taylor was not in on those plays. So
that makes a big difference.
That's huge.
It is so hard. That's what people were, the knee jerk from the Buffalo game. It is how they looked and how they didn't look and all that. How anyone can think they can assess this offense when he doesn't play? It's ridiculous because he is the core of your offense, whether in every aspect. So, yeah, and we're not going to see. He's not going to play. We've talked about this for a month.
No,
he's not going to play.
No,
Joe's going to play more in the preseason than he will, and I'd like to see that.
I would too. I'd get out there.
That'd be fun for 3 seconds.
Get a nice,
until Aiden Hutchinson comes off the corner. And
what do you think my game check would be?
I think it's like $1,000.
Oh yeah, it's got to be something.
I'd get blown up by Aiden Hutchinson.
There you go.
For $1,000.
People always used to joke, would you get in the ring and let Mike Tyson hit you once?
No.
And you'd say yes,
but no.
But the problem is you'd be so slow falling, he'd hit you like 3 times
that's
on the way down.
That's a lot different than Aiden Hutchinson.
That's true.
That's
true.
Hey, we'll get to that Colts-Bills game because we do have finally a game to talk about a little bit, guys. Some film to break down. As Mike says, it's certainly not the end-all, be-all. One preseason game. You can't judge the team by that entirely. But I think there are some things that we can glean, or at least some storylines that we need to continue to pay attention to in the future from this game. But we'll start with some news around the league. And the biggest news in the NFL now is just today, Thursday, as we tape this podcast earlier, the NFL has reached an agreement with Deshaun Watson. From what I understand right now, it's not signed yet, but both sides have come to a conclusion that Watson will serve an 11-game suspension and pay a $5 million fine for his transgressions over the past couple years. So that is finally from 6 games, is what their initial arbitrator said, from the NFL wanting an entire season. They've settled at 11 games, which good thing they came. I'm glad this is over, or will be over soon. But Chap, we talked, and this is the 11 games is not a coincidence. And very few things in the NFL are coincidence. because they are.
You mean the first game back?
Yes. The first game back, week 13, after a bye week and 11 games, is in Houston for Deshaun Watson. Guys, the NFL is the greatest storyteller that there is in professional sports. And Deshaun Watson in his initial game with the Cleveland Browns, Chap, is going to be back where he was in Houston, where this all went down.
And somebody mentioned, and Joe can look it up, I guess, but if it had been a 10-game suspension, the 11th game would have been against Tom Brady and Tampa. And I don't think the league would have wanted that. So, and again, I'm sure a lot of people aren't happy on both sides.
Oh, no, not at all.
And that's what compromises do.
Yeah.
If you've messed up both sides and you know you've got something. We've been talking, I think I was talking 8 to 10 games is what I thought it would be. I never thought it would be a season. And the one thing the league did not want was for there not to be a compromise, and then Goodell says a season and whatever, and then the NFLPA files suit, and then all of a sudden Watson probably plays.
Right.
They didn't want that.
Because it's hung up in federal court.
Correct. You didn't want that. So this is the best probably outcome of this. $5 million, I don't know where you get that. I mean, that's just that's money that he's got in the cushions of his couch.
It was Stephen Holder who was talking about it with us in the room today, in the media room. He says that's what 2% or 2.2% of his $230 million deal.
I don't know what number they could have come up with to make anyone happy. But at least for now, and what's funny, he's still eligible to play in the preseason.
Yep, so he's still going to be out there probably.
I would assume they wouldn't, because why?
Right.
You're taking snaps away from Brissett. Although now, how much do you play Brissett? There had been talk about Cleveland maybe getting in the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. The fact that it's 11 games, are you a little maybe more interested?
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's getting awfully late in the preseason, though, right now. You know, you got to bring him in. You got to get him up to speed. So how long would it really take Jimmy Garoppolo to catch up there in Cleveland? Would Jacoby Brissett be the better option?
Well, the Colts did that the 1 year with Brissett.
Well, yeah, they needed to that year.
Because that was totally different situations. But yeah. So it's funny. I'd like to see, and I haven't, but I'd like to see what the Vegas odds went to with Cleveland's win total now, with him out for 11 games. Mm-hmm. But one thing that's always irked me is how people say, well, this is really unfortunate for Stefanski and Browns. No, they brought this on themselves.
They knew what they were getting into.
They did. They had to be more than willing to him not playing this year at all.
Yeah.
They really had. I mean, they are in this for the long term, which good for them, I guess. But I'm with you. I'm glad there's some resolution, and it will be a non-story until week 13.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head when you say you can't feel bad for the Browns in this, because they knew what they were getting into. Whether you are saying on two ends of the spectrum with Deshaun Watson, whether you say what he did was so egregious he should never be allowed to play in the NFL again, or if you say, well, he wasn't found guilty of anything criminally, so he should be able to play right now. I think that there's a spot in the middle there that's accurate, by the way. Neither one of those is my opinion. But you can't say that the Browns should feel bad, because anything in there was possible for them. Oh no, that's not Joe. Joe, did you look up something over there? Did you look up their win total?
I'm trying to find the win total on that.
Can't find it.
It was 9.5.
It's probably off the board right now.
Probably is.
Yeah.
It's 9.5 after the 6-game suspension came down.
So it might go down to 6. Yeah, that's not unreasonable. And hey, I mean, Jacoby led the Colts to a 5-1 start. That was their or 5-2 start when he was their starter a while ago.
I'll tell you,
that was their best start in years
until the knee injury.
Yeah,
they were. He had a ceiling.
Yeah,
that we could see.
A very defined ceiling.
But you would think 10-6 that year would have been very, very reasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I'm just curious to see if the Jimmy G stuff starts up again, because of all the stuff in the offseason, all the big storylines. He was one of them, and They're sitting there holding a quarterback that they can't dump on
Still
anybody.
status quo there. Hey, the biggest news here in Indianapolis this week is unfortunate news. As rookie tight end Drew Ogletree, the 6th-round pick, is going to be done for the season, placed on injured reserve today after tearing his ACL in Wednesday's practice. We were all watching, at least I was watching it. It's a non-contact drill. He's going over the middle of the field, just goes down. And immediately you think the worst because it's non-contact.
And he didn't get right up. And,
no.
Yeah, it just...
And it was the worst.
If you see it enough. And then after practice, Frank said,
doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good. Then he said, it's a significant injury.
Yeah.
Well, for Frank to say that,
right.
you just knew.
So
and
then there's a very telling test for an ACL injury on the field. Like you
Correct.
go out there,
Correct.
The trainer can do something, and then you immediately know, hey, this is an ACL, and that's exactly what.
And the
it was.
MRI will confirm it, which it did.
Which exactly didn't. And that's why you never confirm it until the MRI, just because it's there. But Ogletree was out there at practice today. He had a big brace on, so we've seen more of him than we have of Jason Kelly, the offensive tackle who had the knee injury. Dennis Kelly, excuse me. I was thinking Jason Spriggs and Dennis Kelly. I molded them into one person, excuse me. Jason Spriggs has been released. We'll get to all the roster news in a second. But, Chappa, you brought up Dennis Kelly to Frank Reich today just because we still haven't seen who was supposed to be the Colts' primary backup tackle, at least primary backup right tackle, depending on Bernhard Raimann's development here in camp for the regular season. We haven't seen him since he went down with a knee injury a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, again, there are guys that are injured, they're rehabbing. Shaq Leonard, he's out there every day. And we see guys that are dealing with this, that, and the other, QT, whatever, and they're out there. We haven't seen Dennis Kelly in forever. And this was a guy that missed virtually probably all of OTAs in minicamp. So and you just knew whenever a guy's not out there, we were joking in the meeting room. I said, Frank will come out and say, well, as you guys know, Dennis Kelly had, I think he called it a procedure.
You did, yes.
I may have said surgery.
You asked him, did he have a procedure? And he said, he paused for a second, he had a procedure.
Right. Yeah. But so we'll see. And he's got time. Let's say let's just say a meniscus, just whatever. And that's probably 2 to 4 weeks, like right. I'm spacing who had the Jets quarterback. Had the same thing.
Zach Wilson.
Right, and they say 2 to 4 weeks. So there's still time for him to get back in practice because they need it. We watched the backups, and you don't like to knee jerk, but they're not playing very well.
No.
Outside of Bernhard Raimann, you just don't see much. You just don't. And you don't need 2 full lines that you're comfortable with, but you need
2 players at least. You need 2.
You need to have
2.
Ballard always says you like to go into the season with like 9 that you consider starter quality. Well, that's not going to happen.
That's hard to find in the NFL.
Right, it is. But boy, you need backup tackles.
Yeah,
I think at the expense of or not to rip on guards because one of them's going to be mucho paid soon. But I think you can make do at guard interior. It's hard to make up for the lack of reliable edge linemen. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, Matt Pryor's taken, not Matt Pryor, the entire offensive line, knock on wood, they've taken every snap in camp. With the ones, but Pryor, it's hard to kind of say how he's played. Okay.
Is it?
Both of us are wincing a little bit.
There's a couple plays every once in a while they're like, oh.
They're not okay.
Yeah.
But then, and I think...
And then there are some where he's like, he stuffed Aiden Hutchinson perfectly.
Right.
He couldn't get anywhere with the second overall pick.
So are you really going to go into the season at some point and go with a rookie at left tackle? I
just find that hard to believe.
I don't think so. I think you start with Pryor and you just see... it sounds so bad. If he's okay, just don't be, don't be Eric Fisher. So, but I think before long into the season, I think Raimann will be the guy because I think he's got such upside in it. Would you rather have a rookie? And this is another tough one. Would you rather have a veteran struggling and occasionally get beat, or I understand the rookie learning curve. I don't want my rookie learning curve to be at left tackle.
Yeah.
To where you're exposing your quarterback. So But I think mid-season, if Pryor struggles, Ryman's your left tackle.
I will bring our discussion here quickly back to Drew Ogletree because I just want to ask you.
We get off track.
We did. We all do. But what like I think a successful season for him, Chap, would have been like 30 catches, something like that.
He was looking good.
He was looking good, and I think they were gonna try to get him the ball. But I mean, if you have 35 catches, that's like 2 per game. And for a guy who's your third tight end, after Mo and after Kylan Granson, 30 catches is, I think, pretty good, especially for a rookie. So,
and there would be a couple of plays.
Yeah, there would have been some good splash
plays, right?
I think. Yeah. So you look elsewhere to see where can that come from, and that's tight ends. And perhaps if you just need another big body, the Colts got another big body back, which is Michael Strawn. Missed the first 10 practices, recovering from a torn meniscus in the offseason.
He looks good.
Like he did last camp too. Same thing.
True.
Like so like I'm hesitant to throw that he's definitely going to be on the 53-man roster, but boy, but
who else is it going to be the fifth receiver?
That's the thing. Yeah. That Des Patman, are you really set on making it him?
Has he done anything to really
separate nothing in camp. No, nothing at all.
We were talking that normally
he's not been bad, but he hasn't done anything.
I asked Strawn that the other day. I said, you're watching practice. Are you thinking, boy, I'm missing time? And he said, yeah, at one point I was, but then when you go back and watch practice, no one really pushed him back to where it's time he can't catch up. I think the 4 are set with Pittman and Campbell and Doolin and Pierce. After that, nobody has really done much. Mm-hmm. So but he looks good. They put him out there pretty quick.
They did.
In 7-on-7, 11-on-11, and he's made plays. I would assume he'll get some pretty good work on Saturday in the game.
Oh, so
it's there for him. Yeah, last year, again, he did look good in camp, and then they found out the game was he wasn't ready for the game.
Right.
And Frank even said that a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's the case now. And boy, if he's out there and part of that with that size, what is he, 6'5", 225? I mean, holy smokes! Mm-hmm. With he and Pittman,
put him and Jelani Woods and Michael Pittman out there. It's the towers, whatever you'd call it.
Yeah, they built a basketball team for Matt Ryan to throw to.
They did. So anyway. Roster moves. All NFL teams needed to cut down to 85 players this week. The Colts are actually at 86 because of their exemption for Marcel Dabo, the International Pathway Program. But they released Jason Spriggs, former IU tackle, waived offensive tackle.
Who was playing guard. He was
playing guard, yes. Good point. Thank you, Chap. The first round of cut downs included offensive tackle Brandon Kemp, wide receivers Isaiah Ford, Michael Young Jr., cornerback Alexander Myers. So the roster is now at 86. They have to cut down to 80 on Tuesday, which will be 81. And then to 53 on August 30th. And then Dabo kind of goes to the practice squad kind of that extra spot. So it's not like I don't think you have 54 people on your
I was going to say he goes practice squad, does he? He's an extra practice squad player.
Yes, that's I'm 99% sure
right.
that's how it's done.
Too many rules.
Yes, exactly. There are. Who cares about rules? No rules.
I know.
What does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Clinic Care Network mean for you? It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means your Hancock Health doctor can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together, we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic. We certainly hope the Colts don't have too many doctor visits this year, as we've outlined a couple of them so far. After the preseason game in Buffalo, Isaiah Rodgers hasn't played at all this week. I think he got dinged up. Concussion. He was the one that Frank said a concussion. So he's been in concussion protocol, but he has been out on the practice fields. So he's clearly not that so ill-affected that he's out of the bright lights and out of loud sounds.
Right. But he even tweeted, everything's good, or,
yes, he
or
did.
I'm fine, or whatever,
yes.
Which, again,
take that with a grain of salt always.
Don't ask players how they're feeling because all of them are, sunshine and rainbows.
Right. But we do have this preseason game to break down, to offer our thoughts, and to see what there is to see here. Because the Colts did lose to the Bills Saturday, 27-24. If it was a regular season game, you would be horrified by the fourth quarter comeback. But it's a preseason game, so it's like, whatever.
It was like watching Baltimore.
It was. Chap had PTSD from watching this Bills comeback.
Because what was it? 17 unanswered points. I mean, you're thinking, okay, this thing's over. They're not going to come back and finish this, and they did.
Well, they did. Matt Ryan played into the second quarter, went 6 of 10 for 58 yards. was sacked once, no touchdowns, no turnovers, failed on a couple fourth downs. The starting offense played 4 total series without Jonathan Taylor, who is going to be the linchpin of the starting offense. So as Mike says, certainly there's no final conclusions we're going to draw about this Colts team. Frank Reich said post-game about the wide receivers and all that they're not specifically trying to scheme too much right now against defenses. They're putting players in one-on-one situations, seeing if they can get open, which for the most part, honestly, they didn't. They couldn't win those one-on-one scenarios. There's a couple. Pittman did.
Against
Buffalo's backups.
Right.
Yes, their second team. To be fair, I think they have a good player, Joe, and Kyer Elam, the rookie out of Florida. I know we talked about him in the draft last year.
Their first-round pick.
Yeah, he played himself a really good game, I thought. Especially he saw Alec Pierce quite a bit.
Broke up that first third down play.
He did. So I thought he played really, really well and won his one-on-ones. But you hope that the Colts win a couple more one-on-ones that you didn't quite see. Pittman had a couple nice plays. Pierce did kind of rebound. He had 2 catches that I thought were good. But anyway, Chap, what were your thoughts watching this first team, sans JT offense out there on the field against Buffalo?
What struck me was a couple of mistakes by the veteran guys. Was it fourth and 1 or 2 at the goal line, and Braden Smith jumps offside, and then they had a decent gain by Hines, I think it was, and Ryan Kelly gets called for holding, I believe.
Yeah, Matt Pryor had a penalty too. That was the first thing I listed. I hate the 3 penalties by 3 different starting offensive linemen,
and also gave up a sack on the play.
Yep.
So
double whammy.
One or the other. And then I tended to lose interest. They had the big touchdown play to Ogletree, and was that the Bernard Ryman offensive pass interference? There was a penalty that called back.
Yes, it was Ryman.
Which I don't know that I've ever seen an offensive pass interference by an offensive tackle.
There was another offensive pass interference on Ashton Doolin.
Maybe that's the one.
It was a horrendous call.
I texted someone with the Colts and I said, worst offensive pass interference we've seen. They said McDermott called it from the sidelines. He was barking at the officials. And I went back and watched that play. And
I did too. They showed a replay of it.
He just turned around
he didn't touch anybody.
I know it. So
Anyway, we're not going to complain too much about a preseason call.
But I've watched too many preseasons to where teams. I go back to one year. This is really dating myself. When Ron Meyer was here, I was talking to Rick Venturi about this, and they came out and they just threw everything at defensively in the preseason. I mean, they blitzing and everything, and they were great. And then they gave up 100 points in their first 2 games of the regular season. So Frank told us going in, it's going to be generic. It's going to be vanilla. We're not going to game plan because he's got a new quarterback, and they're not. We're not going to see how they're going to use Hines or all of this. And again, they're not going to use Taylor. So, so then you want to see execution and to see your offensive lineman doing things. Braden Smith again, 4th and goal. You don't want to see that. You can't have that. But the main thing is there were no significant injuries. Again, you had the concussion, and then Kiki QT had a groin injury.
Yeah, he's been out.
But beyond, so that's where you say, is that it? Is that it? So
we'll take that.
So I'm expecting even less Saturday.
Yeah.
And then Frank said that just to, again go down another path. Frank said that they're going to play. He said 10 days ago the starters would play maybe a half as a final dress rehearsal against Tampa. I hope somebody talks him out of it.
Yep.
I don't know what. Again, it maybe
Mike's nervous.
If you played the next week or whatever, then you could get momentum. I don't know. The idea of seeing the risk reward to me is not worth it. And Rick and Venturi and I go back and forth all the time. I understand they've got to get to quicker starts and all this, and I'm just not sure what 20 snaps against Tampa in the third game, how that's going to carry over that you can't get in practice. So we'll see.
Joe, anything stick out to you from watching this game and specifically the first team offense? Or this is kind of what we were starting out with here. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, the results weren't great, but they weren't awful either. It was 6 of 10. If Matt Ryan was 3 of 10, maybe it'd be a little more alarming. But
and there were a couple of drops, at least one.
Yeah, so I thought it was fine. hopefully once not scheming up is like a big deal, because that's like a huge part of Frank Reich's offense, where he tries to get people in the right situations to win, and just going out there and saying, okay, go win one-on-ones to a wide receiver group, which we've all kind of agreed is might be the weakest position on the team.
It might be the weakest wide receiver room in the NFL. Let's just throw that out there.
It's up there.
Like I love
down
Pittman. Yeah, down there.
It's down there.
But you look at other receiving rooms right now in the NFL, and you're hard pressed to say that this Colts receiving room is definitely more accomplished or definitely better than any other one in the league. There are other teams have players like Pittman too that are young guys that are coming on strong.
He's going to catch 100 footballs this year.
I think he might. I really do. Especially like he's going to take some more with Ogletree getting knocked out too. Like Ryan looks for him. He looks for him a lot, and he had a good day today. Pittman really did. Had a couple really nice catches, but Chappell
did a
not
couple
wrong.
of those bubble screens, and
Yep.
I tell you, it's hard to tell what's a big gain in these, even the scrimmages, because defenders still don't just rock people.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple where that would have been 20 yards, that would have been 30 yards.
Yep.
So, and one thing, not to get so offense-centric, I thought the defense played well.
Yeah, I agree.
What was it, 5 takeaways?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it was not against the main guys, but if you're going to play the backups, then dominate them.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of chunk plays they give up, but I thought it was a very opportunistic and encouraged, considering that Leonard didn't play and the main guys played maybe 2 series, maybe. So very encouraging.
Yeah, I one thing I thought was like the one thing I wrote down that was the best I thought from the first team defense, or just the defense in general, is the entire first half. Buffalo was, I think, 0 for 5 on third down.
Third down's
like,
correct.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, we talked about it earlier, situational importance, and if you can get off the field on third down, then you're going to win a lot of football
And
games.
this team really didn't do that last year.
No, they didn't.
Often enough.
Yes, and like we said, this is against the Buffalo Bills' backup offense, but hey, I'll take 0 for 5 against anybody. I'll take 0 for 5 against Zionsville, as Chuck Pagano would say. Can't do that against Zionsville with multiple turnovers
So
or penalties.
we'll be
whatever it
getting
was.
calls from Zionsville now.
That's right. Yeah, we do.
Way
We
to
are
go.
going to get them. So direct all trouble to at DaveG_sports on Twitter. You can find us at Colts Blue Zone. Mike Chappell is at MChappell51. Joe Hopkins is at Roto Street Joe.
One more note on the
Yeah,
game.
keep going.
That we talked about training camp competitions. I think one of them ended in Buffalo. The place kicker.
Yep.
It's not fair, but when you're Jake Verite, you can't miss it. You can't miss a pat. You can't do it.
I can't argue with you. Can't do it.
And it's amazing. We've talked. It's amazing to me to where taking these guys at their word that this was going to be. Now this was Blankenship's job to lose, but we're going to have open competition. And prior to today, they had kicked 15 times each in team drills. 15.
Yep.
And they were both 13 and 15. And then I think Hot Rod, what do you have, a pat and a 24-yarder, I think. And then Verite misses the PAT. And then today they kicked 5, and Hot Rod was 5 of 5.
Longest was 54 yards.
Right, and then Verite pushed his 54-yarder, whatever it was, wide right.
Wide right. He's pushed everything wide right. That
Right,
he's missed,
so
it seems like. He's pushing
it's
everything.
It's like, yeah, it's going to be open competition, but unless Hot Rod is just awful, he's our kicker. It just, I don't see how you've seen enough in team competition to say it was really, really an open competition. I realize they kicked in the indoor a little bit, but Frank made it very clear that no, it's what we do out here that matters in games, and I just think I wouldn't be surprised if one of the cuts on Tuesday's a kicker, because you're going to need roster spots for players to play in the third preseason game.
Yeah.
So that's one that you may need, that you probably will need.
Yeah, leave it for people who either A, have a chance to make the roster, or B,
Right.
can make up that third preseason game in
Correct.
the second half. Completely. I completely agree. So, Joe, your boy Hot Rod is safe, it looks like.
Glad I get to keep wearing that Hot Rod shirt I bought. I wasn't looking so great towards the end of last year.
You need to go out and get the goggles next. Get the specs.
That's right.
I'm sure they're available on
specs
Amazon.
going.
Yeah. One more note that I had that I really did like was the play of Nick Cross at safety. I mean, that first drive by the Bills, he was in the end zone and had tight coverage and
fourth down, tight coverage.
Yep,
in the tight
third
end.
and fourth down or second and third down, had 2 balls thrown his way, incomplete passes. And then in the second quarter, he made a really nice tackle in the backfield or right at the line of scrimmage on a third down run. So he got up there, stuck his nose in it, made the play, forced a fourth down. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more out of Nick Cross. So the guy who's probably going to be the starting safety alongside Julian Blackmon, I thought looked really good. If there's one, again, everyone knows how much I love safeties, but if there's somebody that I was most encouraged by in this preseason game, someone that I really want to make more of a declaration on, as I
how does he play in the game?
Yeah, as I won't do on others because it's a preseason game. Cross, I think I'm more apt to make the declaration that he is ready to start, even though he might miss some plays. I think he is ready to start in the NFL.
He might be one of the few guys that plays Saturday.
Right.
And
Give him more time.
It may be because he's a rookie, and it may be because they're a little thin at the position, I think. Here, McLeod, but I like the kid. Sometimes I've always said there have been a handful of guys that come through, and you say, he just gets it, and he's going to – Antoine Bethea, Gerard Powers from day one.
Yep.
Just day one. And what is he? He's 20?
He's 20 years old. He'll be 21, I think, at the start of the season. I forget exactly. I thought it was really close to the start of the season.
I've got a grandson older than that. That's crazy. But
September 10th.
There we go. Yep, right before the start of the season.
So he'll have his birthday the day before the opener.
21st. Yeah, they go out partying the night before, and they're terrible. Absolutely terrible in Houston.
He can get lit.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be great. That'd be hilarious.
Well, Frank,
he's puking on the sideline.
Frank, he's a healthy scratch. What happened? Well, he came in and
Houston was unkind to Nick Cross and his 21st birthday last night.
Maybe he holds that celebrating for after the game.
There you go.
Celebrate the win.
Yeah, do it on the plane ride back. Let's hope for that.
Getting him some of those alcohol-free Heinekens.
There you go. Before. God bless you. Hey, Nick Foles had 2 turnovers at backup quarterback. One of them was a fumble return for a touchdown. He got blasted by your boy Jordan Murray, giving up some pressure from right tackle. I don't think
looking so great.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair to you, that was obviously a reach, and we admitted that it was a reach, guys, to make the 53. But Jordan Murray has been nothing special. I think that's the nicest way I could say it in camp. Sam Ehlinger played really well. 10 for 11. Like he was running around a lot back there. And Chap, you said it today as we were talking just about him in general. He's the perfect preseason quarterback.
Perfect
one. If you could design a preseason quarterback,
second halves are unscripted.
Yes, completely. And Ehlinger is an unscripted guy. That's where he thrives. When things are on the move, when things are going nuts all around him.
Let's just take this 10 seconds to say there is not a competition for backup quarterback. There is not.
We'll be very clear in that. In spite of the differences in performance, Foles, I don't think Foles was bad. He threw one bad pass, which was intercepted. It was a really bad pass.
On him. Yep.
Like, I think it sailed on him, and you could argue, and I don't know because I would have to ask Frank this question specifically, but I think it was over Kuti, if I'm not mistaken, before he got hurt. Like maybe Kuti just ran the route shallow. Maybe he was supposed to push it upfield 5 yards further, and then it wouldn't have been quite so bad. Like that's something that I learned from covering football at Florida State. Yeah, with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo would never say anything bad about his quarterbacks. Like never. Whether it was Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel, Jameis Winston, like he would always point out, hey, wide receiver ran a 5 yard out instead of a 7 yard out, so that's why it was too high. Over the middle, he got pressed and got behind the play, and so it wasn't Jameis's fault that ball seemed to sail. So like that's like I said, I learned a ton of football.
We've seen some time in practice where Ryan has thrown to Pierce and he's been off target, and then you see Ryan go up to him and kind of signal that you're supposed to take that 5 yards deeper.
Yep.
So there's something to that.
Definitely. So let's see. Anything else stand out from there? Let's see. Doolin. I have that note about Ashton Doolin here. Gosh, those are just bad. And Chap, I think I'll say one more thing, and that's I hate Nyheim Hines running up the middle on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. I know they did it a couple times, and I just hope never to see it in the regular season because it just never seems to work. So Philip Lindsay, I thought was actually that's a really good Philip Lindsay possibility role because he's a shifty guy. Like he can go up to the line and just make a little move.
In games, won't it be Taylor?
I would hope it would be, but it was Hines last year when Taylor was having the great season.
Yeah, but at Buffalo, he had a couple of his touchdowns around the goal line, and
I hope it's Taylor. I hope it's Taylor. I hope it's not Hines. As much as I love Nyheim Hines in his role, I do not love him on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1.
I agree, and And maybe there'll be a few times. I don't know what Ryan's history is on quarterback sneaks.
It's a good question.
We know. I think
can't be as good as Jacoby Brissett.
But didn't we have Phillip Rivers where he hardly ever had one? We went back. Well, but the last one I had was 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
But you need to have that option. But boy, you need to be able to convert those. It sounds crazy and Mr. Obvious, but those keep drives going, or they finish drives. And I just think we were talking too, and only I'll talk to Frank about it. But when they get in their hurry up into the half or whatever, and you're in more of a pass mode, you've got your best player on the sidelines. Yep. Jonathan Taylor is not really involved in that 2-minute.
Right.
I understand that, I guess, but boy, it just hurts when you've got your best player. And again, Hines is so much more effective as a receiver out of that, but. Yeah, Hines, it's kind of one of those, don't overthink it. Don't put Hines back there. Now, maybe you can try to sneak one in when it's 3rd and 7 or whatever, and you're around midfield. You want to try to sneak a draw, but not around the goal line, not up the middle. It's almost like they're trying to say our bigs are better than your bigs. Sometimes that's not what it is. One of my pet peeves forever is when it's 4th and goal at the 1, and this isn't just with Frank, and I'm not sure Frank's done it as much as Pagano did, but they put, how many guys can we get in the box? Can we bring in all of our big guys and really clog the middle and try to pound a yard instead of spreading everybody out and give the running back just a crease? Give Jonathan Taylor just a little bit, but
what do you know?
I know. What do I know. I sit and watch it, and then I know I'm up in the press box instead of on the sideline.
What would you call a great health system just a few minutes down the road from Indianapolis, where you can see some of the area's top doctors and healthcare teams in great facilities, including one of the safest hospitals in America, and maybe even save a buck or two on your healthcare? We call it Hancock Health. So if you're looking for smart, safer, affordable care, head east to Hancock Health, where we're making health possible for the people of East Central Indiana and beyond.
This week, the Colts hosted the Lions for a pair of training camp practices out at Grand Park, and certainly the most important work for the starters this week because, as we mentioned before, they're really not going to see a whole lot of action, if any action, on Saturday afternoon inside Lucas Oil Stadium, which you can watch 1 p.m. right here in Central Indiana on Fox 59. Tune in at 12:30 p.m. for the Blue Zone pregame show. We'll lead you right up to kickoff on Fox 59. What stuck out, Chap, to you about these couple practices with the Lions, offensively, defensively? I focused more on the offensive side of the ball. I think most of us did for the Colts to stay down there. So, what'd you see? What'd you think? What happened? What transpired out there?
Yeah, the way it's structured is with the 2 practice fields, and when you're there sort of by yourself, you got to take one or the other.
Right.
And I trust the defense. I think it's going to be pretty good.
That was my strategy too.
And I want to see how the offense. And I thought the offense, by and large, got the better of the Lions in the 1-on-1s and the 7-on-7 and team. Today, again, in red zone, I think Ryan was. They didn't get in on a couple of plays like you talked about, but by and large, Pittman made catches. Alec Pierce had his catch of the camp yesterday in the left corner against their
Colts tweeted that out, by the way, if you want to go take a look.
It's a really cool. I mean, it's like Frank said. That's the kind of plays he made in college. The tight ends look good. Granson's, I think he hit a rough patch about 2 weeks ago. And now he's coming back to where he's making. Mo Ali Cox is making catches.
Oh, looked good today. Yeah. So did Jelani Woods today, which I'm thrilled to see.
Which he needs to. He just does. The running game sort of sputters a little bit, but again, it's hard to tell. But there was one play where Taylor broke, and
nobody touched him. Nobody touched him. 30 yards
It would have been 30 anyway.
Yeah.
And with his speed, maybe he runs away from him. So I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged. And people said, well, this is not a very good Detroit secondary. Well, wait a minute. You can't – don't trash the Colts for having good days against the team and they say, well, they're – it's because they had a substandard secondary. So I thought they played well.
You're going to play substandard secondaries.
Correct.
I mean, you're going to play Houston twice. You're going to play Jacksonville twice. There's going to be teams out there. You have 17 games. Chances are half of them are going to be against teams that are in the bottom half of the league. So it's good to see them going up, Joe, against teams that just don't have it's if you're not going up against Jalen Ramsey every game, that's okay. Like, you're encouraged still to see them going up against other teams' starters and getting some good play.
I mean, golly, it's a lot better than struggling against a poor secondary.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I get it. The Lions did not have a good defense last year. It should probably be a little bit better this year with Aiden Hutchinson applying some pass rush, but the Colts are still supposed to go out there and win. And from what I've heard of the reports, for the most part, they've done that, especially on Wednesday. I heard they kind of came back to earth a little bit on Thursday. But that's what you want to see is your guys winning. And especially, I've heard the Colts are pretty happy with the development of Alec Pierce out there, kind of growing as he comes along.
Yeah, it's sometimes you can see where the game's too big for a guy. It's not for him. He's not had too many drops in practice, I don't think. And again, the catch he had yesterday was really, really quality. But they're finding ways. And again, like Frank, it almost sounds like we're making excuses for Frank. But when he says they didn't scheme to get guys open, well, he, like you said, he does that. He schemes to get guys open, and you're going to see more when the games start counting to how you get guys open and it's just not one-on-one. So I was encouraged. I wish I'd had time to go to the defense, but it's just hard. It's just hard to go down there. But I thought that for the most part, I tell you what I was impressed with was watching Ryman play, even in the one-on-ones. He would occasionally get beat, but then there were times that he just stuck. He got solid and he squared up, and he kept guys at bay. And that's what you want. Once he played left tackle, or he's played tackle for 2 years, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say it's really going to be really interesting to see how they view his growth. It was such a young lineman to Pryor, and I go back to the same thing. Pryor's had one start at left tackle, so it's not like he's the established left tackle. But and again, there were times that Pryor had a couple of, some good plays, and then he gets beat. Well, that's the life of a left tackle. And so what you want to do is when you get beat, you don't want it to be a blow-up play. So, but it's by and large very, very pleased with how they played. And we talked. There were only 3 skirmishes, which is a plus, because you heard all about with Dan Campbell and what he's trying to instill there.
Bite off kneecaps.
Right. And what Frank said is that what's important, and I know it's Frank, but it's he. And at some level, he wants to see fight in his team. He does. But you've got to know when is your toe over the line just enough. You play through the whistle, but you don't let it get out of hand. He said it's how you control yourself once things almost get out of hand. And by and large, again, both teams did that.
Once again, the Colts and Lions kick off Saturday at 1 o'clock inside Lucas Oil Stadium. Watch it here in Central Indiana on Fox 59. Chap, if most of the starters won't play, which is what Frank Reich said, I think the most likely starters to play would be a Nick Cross, because he's a rookie, and Alec Pierce, because he's a rookie. And then maybe Kylan Granson, if you count him as a starter there at that position at tight end.
Boy, but yes. Then when you have Ogletree go down,
I know. I'm just saying the most likely.
I agree.
I'm saying the most likely.
Maybe face on Isaiah Rodgers, maybe one of them.
They're a little light. Isaiah Rodgers is your 4th cornerback right now. So if he's out of concussion
but
protocol,
he's got the concussion, but he didn't practice.
Exactly, he didn't practice all week.
They're not going to do that. But it's, guys have to play.
Someone has to play.
Somebody has to play. So Hines, I just wouldn't put him out there.
Yeah,
you're going to see Philip Lindsay.
What about Matt Pryor, who you brought up? Do you want him to play?
No,
or do you want to see Ryman
I think with the offensive line, they're a group.
Yeah, leave them together. Yeah.
So, and again, I thought the backup offensive line has not played well. But I remember when Howard Budd was here, he says you're not trying to get a second offensive line. You're trying to find 2 or 3 guys that when you need them, they can step in and play.
Right.
He was always good about. We could never keep track of who was where because he moved them around so much. You can ask Joe Wrights that. But it's really hard to say if you had to, name 3 starters who are going to play. I think it's tough to do because outside of Nick Cross, I would say give Pierce maybe a series or 2 just to play because he is a rookie. But they've got so much decision to do on that 5th receiver spot.
Yeah.
Running back, I think they want to see Lindsay. Won't he carry the ball 10 times probably? I think he's your leader to be your third running back.
Yep.
And then maybe Deion Jackson, maybe.
Yep.
So they've got some. I think the defensive line rotation is pretty well set. You want to find that the Mohammed replacement, and is that going to be Cameron Klein or Afidi
Odenigbo?
There you go.
There's like the G is there, but it's not pronounced.
Yeah, if both of those guys, both he and Dyer were on this thing,
Mike's going to quit right now.
It's going to be because my laptop's going to default to one of them. And if I don't recognize it, it's going to go. But I think I like the defense. I like the depth. I tell you, one player we haven't mentioned, and he looks good, is Tyquan Lewis. Holy smokes. I'm telling you, I was talking to Rick Venturi again, and if you didn't know he blew up his patella October, whatever it was, you would know. He looks really good, and he was such a monster loss last year, and what he could do for the rotation. He can play inside, he can play outside. So
sounds like he's currently ahead of Dio on the depth chart.
Maybe.
Well, it's Banagoo right now on that side.
Yeah, I don't buy that depth chart.
Chap's not having it.
Well, maybe not the official, but like the coaches, is Lewis probably a little bit ahead of Dio? Because I haven't heard a whole lot of Dio buzz.
But he has some good pass rushes against the Bills. I think the team has sort of not really pushed Tyquan much because of the injury, but they're going to have trouble holding him back.
Yeah.
So if he'll be one of those guys, and then Dio's going to be one of them. Banagoo, we'll see. He had a great preseason last year. He really did. So, but this will be the great game for those guys.
Yeah.
Because they're going to start and see some pretty significant minutes.
And Banagoo did have another sack against the Bills, so this tradition of good preseasons for him continues. Maybe he can get in the good graces of the coaches. I want to see Jelani Woods have a nice game because with Ogletree going down, they're going to have to count on him even more. And I get he was the third-round pick, and he was the guy going into it they thought they could count on.
He had a bit of a lull, which whether he came back or Ogletree went in front of him. And I was thinking today with the roster makeup, I thought before the injury, it was 4 tight ends and 4 running backs. Do you keep 4 tight ends now?
I think that's a big question.
I don't know.
Is that Jacobson guy, the undrafted rookie out of
or is
Iowa
it a guy,
State?
can you find a tight end probably when roster cuts are
Off
made?
the quote-unquote trash heap.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jack Doyle was
most
off the
likely.
trash heap.
Hey, we'll take that. We'll take that trash all day.
Right.
Kenny Moore was off the trash heap. We'll
Correct.
take that all day.
It's time and place, and you think, boy, could they get a good tackle off the trash heap? Probably not. I mean, people don't get rid of usable offensive linemen; they just don't. So that I would love to see them get. I'd like for there to be another lineman that's not here yet, but teams just don't normally have a surplus of offensive linemen.
They got Matt Pryor last year because they traded with Philadelphia
Correct.
to get
So
him.
maybe something like that will happen. Would they get like
Possible.
a 6th-round pick for
Yeah, it
Pryor?
was something
Wouldn't
low.
you do that every day?
Yeah.
every day of the week.
So if Dennis Kelly doesn't come back to a form where he can kind of be relied upon, maybe they seek another trade out like that. Ballard's done that for a few seasons now.
Correct.
We already mentioned Brissett. So we'll have to see. This team is definitely not complete yet. There will be new players added.
Yep. So that's where we are right now as the second preseason game approaches. Those backup positions, like Chap said, I think are Joe. What I'm looking forward to too. The 5th and 6th wide receiver who's in there. The 4th and 5th option at defensive end. That kind of.
We talked about the linebacker battle with JoJo Doman, and Weatherford had an interception against the Bills.
Yeah,
so,
Hamilton Heights.
So maybe this game might sway the coach's decision if one can play really well.
Doman's been out this week. He's been hurt.
Oh, he's been hurt
So
this
yeah,
week?
JoJo
Okay.
Doman's been on the
Did
sidelines.
he play in the preseason game?
He played the first preseason game. I think he might have gotten hurt.
I don't know. Did they announce what the injury was?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody's asked because it's been a backup linebacker position. It hasn't really risen to the forefront of that time with.
Because right
Frank
now,
that we
EJ
get.
Speed's been the third guy, and he's played well.
He just played great. Like he's played really well. Your boy,
My
Joe,
boy.
EJ Speed.
EJ Speed, yeah.
Tarleton
So
State.
the linebacker battle, it'd be nice to see Ryman go out there and
Yep.
play really well
Yep.
at left tackle.
Yep.
Just kind of those backup positions. See, I heard, or at least Pro Football Focus graded Will Fries really well in the preseason game. They said he did a good job, so maybe he could be kind of that reliable guard.
If he's the one, yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to need someone
One.
on the inside at some point. I'm
Yep.
sure someone will go down. So
Yep.
just kind of seeing, because I get the backups aren't the most exciting, but the Colts are going to have to rely on them at some point in this season. So having a few guys that give you a glimmer of hope would be nice.
For sure. For sure. So we'll see what happens come Saturday afternoon.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock kickoff.
I may be home by 7 o'clock that night.
Perfect. I love it.
That'd be nice.
We did it as a favor to you, Mike
Thank you.
Chappell.
Thank you.
Glad to help out, and we'll have plenty of time to put together our 10 o'clock show that evening.
It's all about us.
Exactly. I don't know what else matters. It's for us to
If
get
I don't
ready.
look after me, no one else will.
Exactly. Yeah, that's preseason football in the media world. So we thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week to break down this second Colts preseason game and the end of training camp next week in Westfield, Grand Park. The final practices. If you haven't made your way out there, yep, 3 more in Westfield next week. Get out there if you haven't yet. It's been a great time. The city of Westfield's been
Great crowd, really good crowds.
Start to finish, it's been really good. A couple of days have just been crazy. They've been absolutely bonkers. Like Fan Appreciation Day with the Lions on Wednesday of this week was crazy busy. Of course, the night practice is always insane. But you look around at what some other teams get in their quote unquote open practices in the league, and the Colts have done a lot. They've done a lot more.
And we've talked about this. The way the players interact with the fans is really kind of cool to see.
Yes, and yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, because this is a chance for a lot of these fans who can't afford to go to games. Mm-hmm. This is their season.
Yep.
And the players stick around.
Quite a few of them do.
Jonathan Taylor was doing Sirius XM radio, I believe, with Bill Polian and Solomon Wilcox. And where they were at, their fans were just lined in back of the barricade. And Taylor had his back to him. And the PR guy, I said, is he going to sign autographs? And he said, well, I'm going to ask him when he gets off the radio if he wants to. And if he doesn't want to, he'll just walk away. Mm-hmm. And he went back there and signed autographs for 10 minutes.
Yep.
So it's I've always said this on some tweets is, it takes like 30 seconds to make some kid's day.
Yep.
And longer than a day. So, give them something and give them something to remember. And again, it's that this is where you start building that next generation of fans. So I think it's invaluable that they're still practicing away from the complex.
Encourage you to subscribe to the Colts Blue Zone podcast. Get us delivered to your podcast listening device as soon as we drop, typically on Thursday afternoons or evenings here throughout training camp and the regular season for sure. And so that'll wrap us up for this week. We'll see you next week after the Colts take on the Lions at Lucas Oil Stadium, Saturday, 1 p.m., Fox 59 in Central Indiana, 12:30 p.m. for the Blue Zone pregame show. We'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.